And thank you very much for joining us here on PM Express. We're going to have a conversation today about reimagining Ghana's development. And it's on the back of a very important lecture that Mr. Kwame Pianim delivered. And I'm delighted that you could join me on set today.
My pleasure.
Delighted. I know you've delivered many speeches, but I doubt if you've done anything like this on live television. You know what? You're going to walk us through slides that you've put and share with us.
Definitely.
Yeah. Yes, I'm happy to have him join us. I want to go to it. And this is a very powerful framing of the conversation because we're going to reimagine Ghana. Ghana in 2057, right? We are 33 years to go. So by the time Ghana will be 100 years. And you say, to yield that prosperity, we need to have inclusive, shared thought through the participation of people in the production process. Everybody must be involved.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's go through what for you will be 2057. Where do you envision that will be, as we see on the screen?
2057, reimagining Ghana, a different development trajectory. And we are going to grow slowly but surely, steady growth. Not the one we've been having, 1%, 3%, 15%, 11%, slow but sure. 5 to 6%, I expected to have 500 billion in GDP per capita of $10,000 per capita.
Per capita. And that's what you see on your screens there. So 5 to 6% is a vision, and $500 billion is what is what is articulated as what will be by 2057.
Will be prosperous and peaceful. Peaceful is important because Ghana, we're a peaceful nation now, but we have to make sure that the peace is retained. And in my village, they say, when you are eating, someone is not eating, then you have problems.
Yeah.
So the shared growth I have is that you participate in the production process, and that's where you'll benefit from. You see, I also propose a lot of worker management
ownership.
Yeah. So that we are blurring the difference between workers and management. Everybody benefits.
Yes. And the way I like to frame this is just imagine what we call the Ghana dream, the Ghanaian dream. I mean, when Martin Luther King talks about the American dream, there must be the Ghanaian dream. What you're telling us is this is what the Ghanaian dream should look like in 33 years.
Yeah, this is what we can do. There are a lot of things that we could have done that we didn't do. And I use South Korea just for illustrative purposes only. We're together. Now they are there, we are here. What went wrong? We could have done this. Can we reimagine a different set of development trajectory, which will bring us to a prosperous and peaceful 2057. We have 33 years. South Korea did it under 30 years. We can do it.
And that's the point.
How we are
it is possible.
It is feasible.
And in this conversation, Mr. Pianim is going to walk us through what he believes we need to do to get there.
Yeah.
But talking about this slide, there is a part that I want to emphasize. All this, you say, won't be achieved if we don't do more population modulation. That keeps our population by 2057 at 45 million people. Why is this important?
I was a bit frightened.
Yeah. And that's the takeoff. This is what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Right? Walk us through what we see on our screens here.
Let me try a little about the population.
Yes, population, yes.
The problem is this. If you don't modulate your population, you have more mouths to feed.
Yeah.
Education, infrastructure for the people. And when I try to do our population, 2057, how big would we be? If we go on the trend that we are on, 2.1% annual rate of growth, we'll be almost 70 million, 69 million people. Where are we going to put all these 69 million people? Then, if we modulate it slightly, we're about 52. But with a little bit more robust management, we come to 45. I think 45 million we can live with in 2057.
Yeah, and we'll come to talk a bit more about what you're talking about because the population is so key. And until I read your paper, before I began to appreciate, wow, population really is at the heart of us achieving this. We'll explain pretty shortly. But then you have this very important, picture to show us. Why is this important? Where are we in this graph here?
I say Ghana, take it like developments like a plane, a plane taking off. You start on the tarmac. Yeah. You need critical mass to push off. But in Ghana, all these 62 years, we've been on the tarmac.
So we've been here?
On the tarmac.
Yeah.
We haven't
even taken off.
We are there. We've been on the tarmac all the time. Whenever we seem to be going, something blow us off.
And then we come back down on the tarmac.
So to get here, to get takeoff, you need certain pillars. First of all, political stability. Without political stability. Fortunately for Ghana,
we have that.
We've achieved relative political stability. I think we know how to talk to one another without killing one another. We have elections and not too many people die, we change government, fantastic. I was talking to an Ethiopian once and he said, look, Ghanaians, you've done well. I said, look at Ethiopia, you're doing very well. I said, look, we haven't solved the political problem. And look at what is happening. If you don't solve the political problem, sooner than later, you have to be killing one another. So you need political stability, macroeconomic stability. If you don't have macroeconomic stability and your city is going up like a yo-yo, it means young people don't have any incentive to save, to buy houses, to be able to save and put it. They have to have a place in the banking system where their money is safe, where their assets are safe. Political stability, security, that that I go to work, when I come back home, my shares that are left there will be there. So that is also very important. So when you have all those stabilities and then macroeconomic stability, then you can take off. But before you are taking off, you need a springboard.
Yeah.
And the springboard is what every country, your people look at the global supply chain and say, what is there that we can supply uniquely using our natural resources and our human resources to be unique in supplying? And I use Korea. Korea had garments,
textiles, wigs. Yeah.
That's how they started with. Then, boom, they went. And we were with them there. Cocoa, gold, we haven't processed much cocoa. We don't process the gold. We are there. That's what we are doing. So we haven't taken off.
And you make an argument, we'll come to that slide, that as we speak right now, we have a springboard in lithium.
Yes.
That we can leverage.
The green battery revolution.
Yes. Yeah, we'll come to that specific. So that's where we haven't even started taking off. We are still taxiing on the runway. And when we get here, the self-reinforcing growth is what you say. That's where the critical mass comes in.
Institutional stability, checks and balances, parliament, everything is working.
Yeah.
And to do this, you don't have to we think you need to get a few big things right. No. You need to get a lot of small things also right.
Yes.
To be able to take off.
And let's get into some of the key specifics, right? And you talk about, this is the point you're making about South Korea. Yeah. That when, at the time we're independent, South Korea, this is for illustration purposes, we're all talking about the same GDP per capita of some $200, right? 200. And then you go forward, you give us, I love this graph, Mr. Pianim, because this graph tells you the story in pictorial form. Yeah. And by the way, what you see in 1960s thereabout is we're all tied, China, Ghana, Malaysia, South Korea, in terms of our per capita GDP.
About 200.
About 200. Yeah. But look at what happens by the time we hit 2022 to your extreme end. Yes.
That's South Korea.
That's South Korea.
And Ghana, where are we?
Oh, Ghana is here.
Okay. So this big gap, I call that the leadership deficit.
The leadership deficit. Okay. And this is the gap that you see here between South Korea at the top there
and Ghana.
And Ghana here. That's how huge it was.
$33,000. We are 2,000. It used to be 200. All of us there.
All of us.
Yeah.
Ghana, China, Malaysia, South Korea. We were all here.
Yeah.
By the time we travel this journey and arrive at 2022, South Korea is here. Yeah. We are still here. Yeah. And you say the gap here is what is accounting for this leadership deficit?
South Korea took the advantages that they had, proximity, U.S., geopolitical need, for countries around Russia and China to contain them. They open up the market, the US market to them, technology, and they took advantage of it. So we consider South Korea had a lot of advantages. But Ghana also, we had some advantage. They gave us AGOA. We didn't do much with it.
Yeah. And the population question, you have done modeling on this. And you say that if you use model 3, which we currently are on in terms of population growth rate, by 2057, we'll be at 69 million people. If we use model 2, where we grow at 1.7% annually, you end up at 52.
We start with 1.7, 1.1, we get there. If we modulate it, we start with 1.1 for the first half, and then we're able to press it down to about 0.7, then we have 45 million. And this is manageable, 45 million population. Remember, when we got independent, 6.6 million Ghanaians. You could drive from Tema to Accra in 15 minutes.
Now we can't.
Okay.
And this is why the population argument, Mr. Pianim, is important. Because South Korea managed to bring the annual growth rate population down to 1%. And they also introduced this 2 is enough slogan. Very deliberate.
And they brought it down. And Ghana were same. We were about 3.2. They were about 3.5% growth, annual rate growth. And they said, look, 2 is enough. And they managed to control their population and came down. Now they have the other problem of not having enough people being born to replace.
But at least they are developed now.
They are developed now.
Yes. But however, we've kept ours now at a 2.1 growth rate.
That one is not possible. You cannot become a developed country at 2.1. There are reasons why you cannot become.
And that for me is the point. You're asking the question, why are we talking about population when we're talking about development, reimagining Ghana's development? You make the point categorically that no nation has developed with an annual population growth rate of 2% or more. That fundamentally is your point.
Yeah, because it's, as countries get wealthy, education is more. Women are getting more educated, they are joining the workforce and all that. And that in itself bring down population. The fertility rate is modulated. And that will happen as you are getting rich. But you see, it's difficult to get rich if you are not saving. Take a family. If you have 7, 8, 10 children wandering around, you are in trouble. You cannot even think about how they are going to go to school, what good schools they are going to attend, their health, clothing them properly, feeding them properly. So it's like a nation. You need to modulate the population. And that helps you. The schools, we are free senior high school. How are we going to be able to put, if it's 34 million, if it's 2% that we are adding, it's about 66
million people.
Yeah,
by
260,000
yes.
people going to the school every year. You can't. And we say that to create a good job, you need about $10,000 investment. If 2%, you are increasing your workforce by 2% every year. Take 600,000. That's $6 billion a year you have to find just to cater for the addition people who are looking for jobs in that particular year. It's very difficult. So your population is important. You cannot take your eyes off it. And it's interesting that these days when the budget is being read, you don't see a paragraph on population. We have a National Population Council, and I don't think we are resourcing it well enough for them to have the type of education that is needed, for people to take good care of their reproductive system.
And I need to repeat that point, that if we don't get that in check, we're going to have this problem where we will not be able to develop. And that's, for me, is why this is important.
Too many mouths
right now. Too many mouths to feed. So imagine free SH, as you said, it's going to cost us far more. Once it's costing us far more, less money available to do other things.
And the infrastructure.
Exactly.
The houses you need to build for them
becomes also an issue, and that's what you see here in terms of the comparison between South Korea and us on the issues surrounding the lessons that we can learn. As you see, the trajectory is very obvious. Per capita income is here, and they are really in the right on top of us in that. So that tells you all you need to know about this. But then also, if you look at the performance, South Korea, how did they get there? They took advantage of their relationship that they had with the U.S. U.S. opened their market for them, and they leveraged on their wigs, their garments, the textiles, and they exported it.
Yeah.
And then you ask a very important question, which is that we also had AGWA.
Yeah. The African Growth Opportunity Act that the American they for say, look, you can export a lot of things into America tariff-free. Yeah. And we didn't take advantage of. We could have taken advantage of the textile. You know, we have cotton in the north that we didn't really leverage upon if we had done it. And when we built Spintex, actually, I did a feasibility study for Spintex textile for a friend of mine. And he was going to gin and spin the textile from the north. And at that time, you know, he was making the khaki for the military and all that. So that was an opportunity to have ginned, done everything textile, and then let's export it to the American market. That would have given us some.
And we did not.
We did.
And we did not. And that's the point there. And so we are still exporting commodities.
Yeah.
Gold, cocoa, beans, crude, and the fear is that we may be doing so for lithium.
See, cocoa, we said we're going to process. Cocoa, we could have processed, say, 30, 40, 50%, even 70% of it. And then you have the cocoa butter, the cocoa liquor, then the paste, which people then use to make chocolate, Ovaltine, and things like that. But we are not processing enough of our cocoa. You know, we ship it as beans outside, and nothing has changed much from 1957 until now in terms of this gold. We take it to Switzerland for them to process. We are not doing processing here for our goldsmiths. So that's the problem.
Yeah, and it appears to me we are taking the easy way out all the time when others are actually thinking about how do they add value. We simply said, get me my small share of royalty. The rest I can just ship outside. Well, that's a problem that we have. Now, we talk about this is the takeoff. This is what we need to do to take off, right? And you say every nation has to undertake the preparatory work required for takeoff.
Yeah.
You have bullets there you want to speak to?
Yeah. You know, it was At Lewis who said that countries grow fast where citizens feel secure, safe, to save and invest in the country. Okay. If we are not saving and investing in the country, then we have a problem. You know, you want to be able to save. You're a young man, you invest in insurance to say, I want to get about $100,000 to buy a house, and you are saving. Every day you are putting in money. By the end of 10 years, your 100,000 comes, and the city which used to be 1-to-1 is now 350. You can't build a house. Sure. And you don't have the incentive to save anymore. So it is important that the financial institutions are safe, so that people put their monies in the banks. Not that you go and put your money in savings and loans, they say, oh, we've closed it down, or you can't get your money, or you are investing in pension, and we say we are going to have some haircut on it. So it is important that you feel safe to save and invest in the country.
That's a very important first point to achieving the critical mass you need to take off. The second is modicum of respect for rule of law and relative political stability, which is something you touched on at the beginning.
Yeah, and that, fortunately in Ghana, we have that political stability. We've learned to disagree in a peaceable manner. I mean, now we become too partisan. I mean, the Fourth Republic, this parliament of the Fourth Republic has become a little bit too partisan. I think we haven't gone too far. We can come back. Yeah. I was very impressed, one day I had gone to see Kandapa, who was the Minister for Communications, and he came and said, Uncle, can you give me just 5 minutes to talk to my friend first? I said, yeah, okay. Former President Mahama had come in. He was just the former Minister for Communications. and is coming to see him. And I like it that even though they are on the opposite side of political, they were friends, they talk, and I like that. And I think that in Ghana, we have that, and we are losing it, but it's good, we should maintain it.
Yeah, that's a very important point. And then you talk about delicately cuddled by institutional checks and balances. The institutions must be strong.
They must be strong. Everybody should do their part. Parliament has to check the executive when they bring their bills so that if there's too much borrowing, they can say this.
Are they doing that now? Do you think that we have that?
We missed a little bit, so we should go back.
Go back.
The courts should make sure that people feel that they don't have to kill one another. You don't have to employ a land guard. You go to court, you get justice. So the courts, the police, and also sanctions. The police have to be doing their work. The courts have to be doing their work. Parliament has to do its work, and the executive has to do its work.
And that's a very important point. And you say macroeconomic stability is something you talk about underpinned by a strong, stable financial system. Something we lack right now.
That's very...
On the average, every 4 years, you're going to the IMF.
You see, this is not what takes us to the IMF. These are the financial institutions. You know, your savings and loans, your banks, your insurance companies, Insurance companies are the ones who mobilize long-term funds. That's the ones you use for infrastructure. So it is important that as Ghanaians, we control as much as possible our insurance companies so that the long-term funds stay here to help us build infrastructure. These are the financial institutions. What takes us to the IMF is the instability, the structural imbalance between our revenue and our expenditure. This is what always
sends us to the IMF. Yeah. And then finally, competent human capital is very critical.
Very. Because, as I said, the way countries develop is that your skilled people scan the global supply chain and say, we can do this. Nobody else can do it. Take advantage of that. And to do that, your people have to be competent. We negotiate. We always complain about negotiating agreements. We are paying a lot of money on judgment debt. We should have learned by now. And look, when Nkrumah started, he didn't have too many lawyers, too many engineers. But now, there's no field of human endeavor where Ghanaians are not excelling. I keep saying this, in the American Engineering Hall of Fame, there are 2 black people there. They are both Ghanaians. Kwadwo Osasare and then Victor Lawrence. 2 Ghanaians, they are there. So we have the people. Lithium, we have Jim Dakwa. So there's no field, gold mining and oil. We have the people. So if you don't have the people, you can be working on the gold. You can be working on any mineral resources. They don't belong to you. Somebody will come, give you a pittance, and take it away.
We'll be talking more about this because when we sit and talk, we expand this conversation. And the thing about this conversation in the next segment is we're going to now detail your radical propositions of how we get there. Some of them are very interesting. Indeed, I like the corruption proposition that he's laid, and the governance one also. You really want to stay to hear his thoughts on that. Back after this. And thanks for staying with us. We're having a conversation today, a very unique conversation with economist Kwame Pianim. And we just finished talking about his own analysis of, first of all, appreciating the Ghana challenge, but also giving us a sort of a picture of what is possible by 2057. The key question to ask is, how do we get there? And he's going to elaborate on that for us in the studio tonight. You know that PM Express is always brought to you by Syntex Tanks. It is strong, it is tough. By Alumobitis also, experience greatness in every moment, and Ghana AIDS Commission. And the Syntex Tanks is a tank I always recommend for you because it is the first to introduce a double layer tank. And now you can also have as many layers as you want. It is the first to introduce the white inner layer tanks in Ghana. And they have the customer specs order. It is bespoke, color, size, just call them and they'll give you your preference. You can also find them across the country with a 7 years warranty, and nobody else gives you that length of warranty. Call them. Their agents are across the country. Call them on 44335168 or shop online at syntexgh.com, and you're stronger, you're tough. Mr. Pianim, so we've now seen what is possible, and you're very confident that we can attain it. But there are a few shackles that have held us down. One is corruption. How do you deal with it?
As you realize, I structured this conversation with my great-granddaughter asking questions.
And in this case, I'm your great-grandson asking those questions. Why your great-granddaughter, I'm curious?
Because development, just like in the family, in the nation, is a sacrifice by a group of people so that another generation can have a better life. So whatever we do now affects our grandchildren, in my case, great-grandchildren. And I structured it in such a way that my great-granddaughter, who's having this conversation with me, is trying to write a paper on the Ghana miracle. The miracle has happened. We are prosperous as the year before 2057, 2056.
When we
this
100
is taking place. And the miracle happened by 2025. That's when the miracle happened. So it took off from the ashes of the economic difficulties, challenges
that we are currently experiencing.
Now, that's where it is going. And we are sacrificing for my great-granddaughter so that she doesn't have to pay my bills. Then she's doing this paper, and I'm talking to her. And he said, corruption. I said, Parliament passed a bill, and the bill was based on the prisoner's dilemma. The prisoner's dilemma is when you have two prisoners and they agree to do something to protect one another. But the first person to break and tell the prison officers what is happening gets benefits. So you put tension between the giver of the bribe and the taker of the bribe. And the idea, I told my great-granddaughter, that's how we solve it. We use the prisoner's dilemma theory to solve it. Mm-hmm. So that if you are encouraged or forced or put in an awkward point to pay a bribe, and you pay the bribe, and then you go and report, you get your bribe back. If you were a contractor, you were looking for a contract, you get a contract. You also get some, maybe 5 points, 5 percentage points for your next contract award so that you are ahead of everybody. If you are also the taker and you took it and you reported, you keep the money once you reported, and then the one who gave, he is fined, the guilty party is fined 200% or whatever they give, and 100% goes to you. The other one will put it in the chest.
In addition to
what you took. So if somebody gave you a bribe and you reported him, you keep the bribe, and the penalties that we have, you get something on top too. So it's a prisoner's dilemma that we use to create tension between the giver and the taker.
Does anybody go to jail for this?
Yes. If you are the guilty party, if you took the bribe, you go to jail for 10 years.
That is if the other person goes to report you first.
First. Whoever reports first. Both the giver and taker are guilty in this case. For you, bribing a public officer is an offense. Taking is an offense. So whoever reports first, the guilty party, minimum 10 years prison sentence. And then if the contract had to do with school, health delivery, a road that may pose risk to human life, then you may go in for life.
Yeah.
My student thought that they are too draconian.
That's why you need to fix it.
The way to fix corruption is to make sure that people are dealt with, and they are dealt with seriously. And
the reason why I think this is brilliant, because often you hear anti-corruption crusaders say one of the most difficult things about corruption is that two people agree to do something. There's no way they were going to say publicly that he did it, because it's between two people, and nobody else was there, with the exception of those two people. So it's almost always nearly impossible to prove corruption, because it's about two people who say it didn't happen. But what you're saying is, now you're creating a situation where there's an incentive for one of them in that private moment when the money is exchanged,
Yeah.
to go and report the other, because he instantly gets the benefit. Whether he took it or he gave it, he gets benefit. He gets rewarded
Yeah.
for that, and the other person gets jail. What happens then is the next time, the guy who is thinking of giving is not sure if he gave, that guy is going to report him. And the guy who is tempted to take the bribe is also not sure if the giver
Go to report.
who's going to report it. In the end, nobody's giving and nobody's taking.
You put tension between them so that you see the person you paid a bribe to, or someone who is giving you a bribe at a funeral, and he doesn't smile. You say, hey, the guy may be about to go and report. So you quickly make sure that you are the first one to go and report. I think it may work.
It definitely, and that's the first shackle. Then we talk about the challenge we have with the human interaction and in everything that we do, which really makes everything slow. The Disassembly Common Fund is one clear example. The monies don't go, we collect the statutory funds, and it doesn't go. You say there's a way to fix this through digitalization.
No, we put it this way. My great-granddaughter comes and says she tried to interview the Controller Accountant General and couldn't. Tried to interview the District Assembly Common Fund Administrator.
We're looking for the human beings to talk to.
They wouldn't, because they were computers, they were robots. And the way is this, the Controller Accountant General, a lot of the payment that they make are computerized. If they are digitalized, 7% of the tax revenue goes to the District Assembly Common Fund. SNET, whatever salaries are being paid, a certain percentage have to go to SNET for the SNET payment. National Health, a certain percentage goes there. Ghana Education Service, a certain percentage goes there. So these are all, if they are digitalized, immediately the tax revenue comes in, you press a button, those funds are shut off. They go into the accounts of the various entities. So the Minister for Finance cannot sit and say, oh, how much is going to the District Assembly Common Fund? Oh, the 7% is 12 billion. Oh no, give them 6. You can't do that. Immediately, 7% of the tax revenue, collect 100 cedis today, $7 goes to the District Assembly Common Fund. Immediately it gets there, Parliament has already decided what percentage will go to every district. So immediately the amount hits the fund, another robot pushes the button, and it goes. The districts, their bank accounts are credited. So that the districts cannot be saying we haven't received money, and somebody cannot say, oh, we are in the third quarter, we haven't even received the first quarter funds. They will go automatically. We digitalize, which means that digitalization means that the mentality of the people also changes. It is automatic.
Yeah.
Everything, 7%, it goes. You don't hold it, you don't debate it, it goes. This Assembly Common Fund, you don't need an administrator sitting there. And then my granddaughter says, what about unemployment? No employment. The people who sit at the District Assembly Common Fund head office, they go to strengthen the district assemblies, because now you need accountants, lawyers at the District Assembly to make it strong, because we are talking also about a reimagined District Assembly. They are now elected, they have power, development is taking place at the district, not anymore in the ministries and in Accra. That's what we are doing it. So our mentality has also changed to fit the digitalized world that we envisaged.
Yeah, I mean, and your great-granddaughter has asked the question, if you put yourself in today's reality, are we on course with all the digitalization, that the Vice President, for example, is trying to implement to get to 2057 when your great-granddaughter feels confident to ask you about this miracle today, based on what we're seeing right now? Are we on that path?
I think we've started with digitalization. What is happening is that because the infrastructure is weak, you go to certain places in Ghana, there's a hole in the Wi-Fi system, so you cannot get access. But once the access is there, and then we digitalized, that means that you have the Controller Accountant General, tax revenue, and they say that a certain percentage goes here. Net payments, it's automatic. Your wages are there, salaries. It goes automatically. It should go even to the bank accounts of the individuals. Sometimes they pay the individuals their money, but the insurance that have to go is not paid. The military sometimes have some deductions that are not made because somebody is sitting on it. But if it's digitalized, automatic, it will go. And I think we are there. We are getting there. I mean, the Vice President has been talking about digitalization, but the only difference is that the people have the equipment, but they still act as if the equipment is not there. But if 7% of the funds have to go to the District Assembly Common Fund, tax revenue, 7%, it goes. There should be no human, until you don't ask the minister, we collected 15. How much will we give them? It goes. That's the law.
That's it. Let's also ask the question that your great-granddaughter will ask you in 2057 about governance. Because for everything you said to really work in the next, 33 years, you must have a very effective government. Let's reimagine it. What would it take?
We have to reimagine government. State. What is the state supposed to do? The most important things that the government has to do with the tax revenue that we collect to make sure that now what we are facing is that government is collecting about maybe 15 plus tax revenue plus grants, about 15% of GDP. Government is spending about 27% of GDP. There's a gap. You have to remove the gap. How do you remove it? One of the ways you do is to reimagine the state. What is the state supposed to do? You and I have to decide what the state does for us. So we can decide priority number one, our security. You have police force to make sure that everything is secure. I'm safe. Nobody can go and take my things. Secondly, health. The health of the people, we have to look at that. We have a national health insurance that is funded by tax, and I like it, that is funded by tax. Well, if it's not, and everybody have to make their side to make arrangements for themselves, anybody who comes to your house to help you there or to sell anything to you may bring disease. So we have to fight it everywhere. So national health is important. Education is very, very important because you don't know where your Einstein is going to come from. It may not be from an Evans Mensah house or Kwame Pianim house. It may be your gardener's son.
Yeah.
So we need to have access to education for almost everybody. For primary education, free, everybody should have so that you can pick the good people and train them. And we are now in the knowledge economy. If you don't have your people trained, if they are not ICT savvy, primary school, they should be fooling around with computers already because that's what everybody. And if you want them to have access to Wi-Fi, they have it. They can take the lessons from Harvard, from any place that they want, any information that they want, they can use it. So education is important.
Is Free just delivering this, do you believe?
I think we have difficulty with the free education because there are too many people. And because we didn't structure it too well, we now have people doing shifts. There are too many students in the classroom. So we need to make sure, and the teachers, we also need to train the teachers very well. You know, now they are talking about STEM, you know, science, technology, engineering, mathematics, you know. You need well-trained teachers to be able, well-trained and well-paid teachers to be able to do that. It doesn't matter whether you are going to school in Achinekrom or in Accra, the minimum access you have to have. So when we reimagine government, we probably right-size the government. What do we want government to do? So some of the things, we don't want government involved. Like when we started, for example, when Valco came to Ghana in the early 50s, 60s, they built their own hospital, Valco Clinic. They had their own buses. They have SNET flats for their people to live in because the private sector was not strong enough to provide those services for them. But now that the private sector is strong enough, you just pay your guy their salary and let them go and look for those services. They come to work, they can take Uber. So the government should now step down. When we didn't have Ghanaians to do certain things, government step in. They were in banking, insurance. We don't need them to be in that. We don't need the government to be selling petroleum products. Let Ghanaians do them. Hotels. Why do we need government in hotels? Let the private sector move in. So we right-size government for it to focus. We need a competent government to make policy. Ministries are supposed to do policy, evaluation, and monitoring. The actual work is done by somebody else. The Ghana Health Service, they run the hospitals. It's not the Ministry of Health. So you don't need to see any vendor in a ministry. They have no business being there. Let those who are doing actual development and procurement, let them do it. Let the ministries focus on policy, thinking, evaluation, and monitoring. So if you right-size government, you reimagine it, then they can focus on the money that they get, the 15% that they get, in doing the things we want them to do for us. And then let's get the private sector to become strong, reliable enough to become a partner to government in doing development.
You have a radical proposition. The annual budget allocated funds will go to implementing agencies and not to the ministries.
Yeah, because now we go to budget, we are hearing Ministry of Agriculture, this ministry, this. But the ministries don't implement that. They are supposed to be doing monitoring, evaluation, and policy. So, for example, take health. Ghana Health Service is there. The money is given to them.
Not roads. To the health ministry.
No. And then on roads, highway is there. Feeder roads are there. Those are the people you give the monies to. And it's, you are doing 100 kilometers, 50 kilometers, 10 kilometers. You allocate the monies to the implementing agencies. And in our constitution, the district assemblies were meant to be the implementing agencies. Most of the things take place in the districts. So you push the money to the district to be able to do that. Ghana Education Service, give them the money. They are the ones who are looking after.
Not to the education ministry.
Education ministry, what do? They are supposed to be doing policy. So the procurement, everything will be done at the implementing agency. Those are the people you give the money to and let them account. And the ministry, you just sit back, monitor, evaluate whether they are delivering or not.
But the politicians, 2027, looking back, the kind of politicians we have today won't allow this to happen. Because that's what the procurement is. But down in your presentation, you talk about the Ghana's problem, partly is also procurement.
Yeah.
But they won't allow this to happen.
It will happen when the people want it to happen, because you have Ghana Education Service. They are supposed to be looking after education. They are actually the implementing agency. You got the health service. The health service have a director of health, deputies. You go to the Ministry of Health, they also have directors and deputies. What are they doing? They are supposed to be focusing on policy. The actual hospital building and this and that, it will be done handled by the Ghana Health Service. We have to move there. If we don't move there, then we are going to get into trouble. And this is why we move. You reimagine government. What are we doing now? Is it helping us? We are the path, the development trajectory that we have now is not leading us to where we want to get to.
Which is what you showed us on the screen.
This is why we have to reimagine what we do. Ministers focus on policy and monitor what we are doing and let the implementing agencies do it. You see, if you have 265 districts actually working, initiating and implementing development, it's huge. That's a lot of this. Other Chinese will say, let 1,000 flowers bloom. Now, we all sit under one tree, the Jubilee House, waiting for manna to drop. If it's in the districts, you have 265 young, bright district chief executives, metropolitan chief executives.
Who are elected, you propose?
Elected and making things happen. And also, you have 265 young people you are looking at. Are they competent? Are they people of men and women of character, courage? Next time they want to stand for president, you know them already. But now we sit down and then we say we are going to have a presidential race. And people come and say, where are they coming from? You don't know them. You haven't seen them perform before. It will be a nice training ground. It will also kill corruption to some extent, tribalism. We are two Fantis, two Ashantis. This is your district, this is my district. They give you the district assembly common fund. I use it to procure food in my district where the farmers are to feed. I buy furniture from the carpenter, local carpenter. You come to Accra and buy some plastic chairs. Next time, whom are they going to vote for?
Obviously. And talk about monitoring and evaluation. This government in the first term had a ministry for monitoring and evaluation. I don't know whether he was an economist who headed it, of makes your rest in purpose peace. Yes, who headed it. Yeah, Lokotose. It's no more. What's your comment on that, considering the proposition you're making, looking back and reimagining government? That was part of the government architecture in the first term.
No, but that's not. I'm reimagining something completely different. Every ministry, their job is monitoring and evaluation.
So not to have one ministry that does it for everybody.
No.
That's what they do. Okay.
Every ministry, your job, your minister has your job. You are minister for education. Your job is to monitor and evaluate the policies in education, whether they are working or not. That was a bit of an anomaly. Monitoring and evaluation of what? The other ministries.
Yeah.
We had a senior minister whose job was probably to do that. But what I'm talking about is that the function of a ministry is policy formulation, monitoring, evaluation, implementing development, the implementing agencies.
And I want to return as we close on, for you said the critical mass that we need to take off. You need to find that unique product, if you like, resource that you can leverage. South Korea, you said, use garments, they use wigs and export it. I want to come back to the lithium question because it's a raging controversy, but raging debate we're having now, whether the deal is good for us or not. But the point you're making is, if you get that right, that is your opportunity to begin taxing to take off. Based on everything you've heard about this lithium conversation, are we getting it right?
I think that what my granddaughter, my great-granddaughter asked me was, how did you make it?
Yeah.
And I've said that you needed this springboard from which to catapult yourself. And that now, we just finished COP28, I believe, the climate change meetings. You know, the last one was
in Cairo.
Cairo was the last
and
one.
then Dubai.
Dubai.
Yeah.
You know, and the green energy, transition to a green energy. This is, I think, the opportunity for Ghana. And we have lithium, and we have some cobalt, we have some of the battery grade ore minerals here. And to take advantage of that, we also have the African Continental Free Trade Area. And when you look at Ghana's location, you know, we are almost sitting on 0-0.
Yeah.
You know, so where we are now, taking advantage of the transition to green energy, and the need for battery. The idea that I was that we use this lithium as the opportunity, and we don't need to talk about who has the concession, who doesn't have the concessions. The differentiation of the lithium is that you are doing domestic value addition. You take the lithium and then you process it. It's high chemistry. And we have the people who can do it. You know, Professor Dakwa has been helping Botswana to do the same. So we in Ghana can do that. And all the government needs to do is to use its free carried interest, its additional interest to say, we are going to take 10-20% of this lithium raw to give to this factory that we have for domestic value addition. And that factory can be owned by Ghanaians and the Ghana government to do that. There are Canadian firms who have the proprietary right, the technology. We team up with them and then we do it here. So the actual exploration and the mining should not necessarily bother us. But I have another theory on that, that where we are now, it makes a lot of sense for us to identify Ghanaians who are in the oil business, in the gold mining business, lithium mining, anything. Capitalize them and let them do it. If you give them the money, what the Ghanaian technologists, technicians, professors lack is access to capital. And I have a solution, I have a proposal, not a solution for that, is that once we capitalize them, they can go to Australia, America, wherever, and hire people to work with them, just like Ghanaians are also hired for us to do gold mine. You go to Tanzania, go to Australia. Everywhere in the world you go, you see Ghanaians in the oil business, in the gold mining businesses. We are ripe now to get Ghanaians to do the same business, as long as we are not jealous of them and we capitalize them and they are doing them. So lithium, if we've given the concession on the one here, I think there's another one closer to Winneba, Cape Coast here. There's also one in the north. There are a whole lot of things. We can work towards it, but we need to use the lithium to start processing it here, add value, and then get firms like Samsung, Elon Musk, and so on to come and build batteries here. Not only that, the car factories that are here, we don't want them to do internal combustion engine. We need them to build battery cars, battery vehicles, and doing it in Ghana. Then we can supply the 1 billion African Continental Free Trade Area market that we have. And that was our springboard in my imagination.
And I want to end with a quote from your lecture. The enemy that has kept us stalled on the tarmac, unable to gather critical mass for takeoff, is corruption, immersed in a web of fiscal indiscipline and procurement fraud. Enjoy the rest of your evening.